Okay, picture this. It's 479 BCE. The huge Persian invasion of Greece has just been totally crushed. I mean, against all the odds, this little coalition of Greek city-states has somehow defeated the biggest empire the world had ever seen. It is a legendary victory, a real David versus Goliath moment. But right after this incredible victory, a huge mystery pops up. Sparta, right? The military machine that led the Greek army, they were the undisputed heroes. So you gotta ask, why did their biggest rival, Athens, end up taking charge of everything? Well, the answer is way stranger than you might think, and it all comes down to the spectacular rise and, well, the epic fall of just one guy.
So look, the Persian army might have been broken on land, but their navy? It was still a massive threat, controlling the Aegean Sea, menacing all the Greek islands and trade routes. So to make sure they were free for good, the Greeks got together and formed a new alliance. They called it the Delian League. The mission was simple: get Persia out of their backyard, permanently. And of course, a league like that, well, it's going to need a leader. And honestly, there was zero question who that leader should be. I mean, come on, it had to be Sparta. They were the oldest, the strongest, the most respected military power around. They were the supreme commanders during the war, their warriors at Thermopylae, their genius strategy at the final battle of Plataea. They literally saved Greece. It seemed like a total done deal. Everybody, and I mean everybody, expected Sparta to step up. Except, that's not what happened. Not even close. In one of those wild pivots that history loves to throw at us, the leadership of this powerful new alliance went to Athens. So how? How could this possibly be? How did Sparta fumble such a perfect opportunity? The entire course of ancient history was about to be rewritten, not because of a battle, not because of some big political debate, but because of the ego of one single, brilliant, and yeah, deeply flawed man. So let's meet our tragic hero, shall we? His name is Pausanias, a Spartan general. This is the guy who commanded the entire Greek army at the final, decisive Battle of Plataea. He's the man who personally watched the Persian army get completely wiped out. For a brief, shining moment, he was the most famous, most powerful man in the entire Greek world.
See, on the battlefield, Pausanias was an absolute genius, a prodigy. He was disciplined, strategic, totally fearless. But take him off that battlefield, drop him into the messy world of politics and diplomacy, he was a complete and utter disaster. And that one single contradiction, that was going to be his downfall. And what's really crazy is his age. Get this. Pausanias was only 34 years old when he won the battle that basically saved Western civilization. 34! He was young, he was a war hero, he was from the royal family. I mean, the guy had it all. But that youth, the very thing that gave him all that energy in war, it turned out to be his fatal weakness when the fighting stopped. You have to understand, in Sparta, you didn't just become a leader overnight. No way. It was a slow, grueling process. You'd spend decades, literally decades, in the barracks, out on campaigns, sitting in council meetings, just slowly soaking up wisdom. Your typical Spartan leader was a grizzled veteran, probably in his 50s. But Pausanias, thanks to the war, he got to skip all of that. It was like he found a cheat code and jumped straight to the final boss without ever playing the first few levels. He had the power, but none of the experience points.
So all this sudden fame just rips him out of the super rigid, isolated world of Sparta and throws him headfirst into the rest of Greece, a world filled with luxury, temptation, and all this political backstabbing that he was completely unprepared for. And yeah, this is exactly where the cracks start to show.
I mean, just try to imagine the culture shock for a second. His whole life, all Pausanias knew was Sparta's brutal, no-frills lifestyle. We're talking disgusting black broth for dinner, one scratchy tunic to wear, and sleeping in a communal barrack. Then, boom! Suddenly, he's sipping exquisite wines, he's wearing these soft, luxurious Persian silks, and he's walking through palaces with walls literally carved out of gold. This dazzling new world didn't just tempt him, it completely blew up a lifetime of everything he'd ever been taught. Okay, so here's his first major political blunder. It all goes down at Delphi, which is like the most sacred religious site in all of Greece. The victorious Greeks, as was the tradition, set up this big monument to thank the gods for their victory. Pretty standard stuff. But Pausanias, well, he decides it needs a little personal touch. He actually has his own name carved into the monument. He credits himself, one single guy, for the whole victory. Now, to you and me, that might not sound like a big deal. But in Sparta, that was the ultimate sin. Spartan culture was all about the collective, the group.
The victory belonged to Sparta, not to one person. So by putting his name up there, he was basically shouting, "Hey everyone, I'm more important than the state."
Well, the bigwigs back in Sparta, this powerful council of 5 elders called the ephors, they were absolutely furious. They saw this as him spitting right in their faces, a direct challenge to their authority, so they immediately sent guys to literally scrub his name off the monument. And just like that, Pausanias, their greatest war hero, was on a watch list. He was a marked man.
But even with all that, his military skills were just too good to waste, so he gets a new command: lead the Greek fleet and capture the super-strategic city of Byzantium. And again, on the battlefield, the guy is a rock star. He takes the city, no problem. But it's right here, in this new position of power, so far from home, that his political cluelessness would become, well, fatal.
What happened in Byzantium was basically a masterclass in how to completely destroy your own career. First off, he starts dressing up in these luxurious Persian robes, the clothes of the very enemy they just bled to defeat. His own Spartan soldiers were disgusted. Then he starts acting like some kind of tyrant, treating all the Greek allies like dirt. After that, he hatches a secret plot, starting up a secret correspondence with the Persian king himself. And finally, the end game becomes crystal clear. He's planning to betray all of Greece so that, with Persia's help, he can become its supreme ruler.
The uproar from the allies got so loud that Sparta had no choice but to call him back home again. He gets put on trial for treason, but, the guy was careful. There was no hard evidence, no smoking gun letter, so they stripped him of his command, but they couldn't actually convict him. He was a disgraced hero, sure, but he was still a free man.
But Pausanias just couldn't let it go. He keeps up his secret plotting right from inside Sparta, sending letters to the Persian king through messengers. And he had this really cruel way of keeping things secret. The messengers he sent just never came back. Well, one day, one of these messengers gets a bad feeling and decides to open the letter he's carrying. And right there, in Pausanias' own handwriting, is a little note for the Persian king telling him to kill the guy who delivered the letter.
That was it. That was the smoking gun the ephors needed. When they came to arrest him, Pausanias panicked and ran to a temple, thinking he'd be safe there. But the Spartans were done playing games. They couldn't kill him inside the sacred temple. That would be a huge religious violation. So they did something much colder. They just walled up the entrance, brick by brick, and left him inside to starve to death. The man who saved Greece died a traitor's death, trapped and alone in the dark.
Now, the death of Pausanias wasn't just some personal tragedy. It sent a massive shockwave through the entire Spartan system, and the aftershocks from it would end up reshaping the entire Greek world.
So what was the big lesson that Sparta's super conservative leadership took from this whole disaster? It was simple, and it would change everything. They decided that sending their best guys abroad was just too risky. The outside world, with all its luxury and ambition, was just a corrupting influence. The Pausanias affair was a huge national embarrassment. Their solution? Pull back. Just retreat into their famous isolation and stay out of foreign messes for good.
And as Sparta pulled back, basically abandoning its allies and seeing the world as one big threat, Athens did the exact opposite. They stayed involved, they saw foreign command as a huge opportunity, and they went around reassuring the very allies that Sparta just ticked off. In doing so, Sparta basically created this massive power vacuum.
And guess who was perfectly positioned to fill it? Athens. All the other Greek states were still terrified of Persia, and now they felt totally abandoned by Sparta. So they turned to the only other power that had the strength and, more importantly, the will to lead them. They went to Athens and asked them to take over the Delian League. And just like that, because of the massive ego of one Spartan general, the Athenian Empire was born. Not through a big war or conquest, but simply by default.
Think about it. By reacting so hard to the failure of just one man, Sparta pretty much handed an empire to its greatest rival on a silver platter. They had the chance to lead a united Greece. Instead, they chose to hide away, and in doing so, they allowed a powerful challenger to rise right on their doorstep. So you have to wonder, did that one single crucial mistake make a future war between them inevitable? Did it set these two superpowers on a collision course for the devastating Peloponnesian War that would eventually tear their entire world apart?